I can't look at you. I can't do it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to First Ring Daily Live. It's Friday.
It's November.
It is November. It is cold,
It's
wet, and rainy.
It's 70 degrees out here. I walked this morning in a t-shirt and shorts, and it was glorious.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you? Enrique, I think is how you pronounce it, says hello from Panama.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's warmer there than here.
Yep, I would hope so. Yeah.
So, Paul, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
When you do your gamins, what do you use a headset or what do you use?
I usually don't, although I've been testing a Turtle Beach set that is designed for the Xbox. I also have a set for the PC. And I also got a set in from HP, by the way, that has like cooling on the ears, right? So like when you get in a car, yeah, which is I think answers my one big complaint about these things, because I get, it's the reason I don't wear the big heads, the big cans, like the noise canceling things anymore, because it was just too, it would make my ears sweaty.
Oh, poor Paul.
Yeah. Why do you ask, Brad?
Because I got these two.
Oh, what do we got?
So Plantronics sent over these bad boys.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep,
basically, peculiarly named and titled as most gaming things are, Rig 800LX, which is completely wireless, and then
So it was one for Xbox and one for PC. Are they both for Xbox?
both for Xbox.
Interesting.
One wired,
Yeah, I noticed,
one wireless. Yeah.
This kind of the new style, small.
Yep. It's exactly the same
headphone.
type of mic.
Yeah.
They're sitting
These are
over on the
wired.
table.
So are they both wireless?
No, one is wired and one is wireless, and
Yep.
it's putting me in a tizzy about which ones I'm actually going to use full time, because the wireless ones are, well, they're wireless, they're great,
Yeah.
but the wired ones are actually higher quality.
Yeah. I don't find it to be too objectionable to wire into a controller, right?
Yeah.
So you're still going to be kind of untethered from the box,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So I haven't fully decided, but those
Nice.
yeah, they sound great though.
Yeah.
I had to do some scientific gaming last night and this morning, and a little bit before this podcast to make sure that they're still great from last night.
So you probably already know this, because I bet you wear headphones a lot, but in playing Call of Duty Black Ops 27 or whatever we're on now, for sure. And this is like, I don't mean to say this is like some kind of epiphany. I mean, maybe it should be no surprise, but it is amazing how much more you hear.
Yep.
And how much more directional it is.
Yeah, both of these headphones, which is kind of nice here, they support Dolby Atmos.
Oh, nice.
And then
I'm not even sure if this does.
Even better, though, they actually include the card, a prepaid card for the app to download in the box.
Yeah, the
which
Atmos.
is nice.
Yes, right. I have one of those sitting around here somewhere. I got it with the Xbox One X. I don't think I ever redeemed it because I don't really have a use for it yet. Although I guess there's like a headphone form of Atmos.
No, that's exactly what it's called. It's called Atmos for headphones.
Yeah. So I guess I could have. I don't know. I'll find that. It's here somewhere.
Yeah. Yep, and that's all we got for the day. See you later, everyone.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Go take a nap. Go take a nap. Yep. So Apple announced that they sold a couple iPhones yesterday. And clearly you saw that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the bigger drama kind of happened later, because one of the big themes with Apple over the last year is that they've seen either declining or flatlining unit sales on all of their products, on all their hardware products. And that happened for sure. The iPhone was, sales were even with last year, which honestly is not a bad feat. And I don't mean that in the sense that the broader smartphone market is either down or flatlining as well. Everyone knew that this was going to be a massive year for iPhone upgrades. So the fact that they sold as many as they did in that quarter is still astonishing. But, iPad sales were down again. Mac sales were down again. That's everything, right? That's all they make. So, and then, of course, the other trend which is happening with Apple is the services revenue was up to $10 billion in revenue. So that's interesting. But Apple is now pulling a Microsoft, and starting with the current quarter, they're not going to talk about unit sales anymore. And the reason they're doing that is to mask the fact that unit sales are just going to go down. There's no, this is the trend. that doesn't mean Apple doesn't have a healthy business, because you have to look at it in the context of the health of the overall businesses that they compete in, but also in the size and maturity of its market. The years of explosive unit sale growth are over. What hasn't changed for Apple is that their revenues keep going up. And so
Right.
they're monetizing their customers better, and they do that in two different ways. They increase the prices of the devices. So even though people may be upgrading less frequently, whatever the device type, I think that's fair to say is true across the board. They're paying more when they do upgrade, and then monetizing them on an ongoing, hopefully month-to-month basis through services like Apple Music or iCloud storage or whatever. And obviously, the strategy is working. I mean, this has been something.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I never really expected them to not provide unit sales. I think, Apple's always had an interesting health story. So even though they're only 11% of the smartphone market or whatever, the iPhone has still been the best-selling smartphone model.
Yeah.
Why not continue to highlight that? And the fact that they can sell 5 million-ish Macs a quarter is astonishing. I mean, this is a product line that until this past week hasn't been updated in a meaningful way in years.
But it also kind of justifies why they probably put a dual-core chip in there. Is they say, well, we sold 5 million of the old crappy ones. Let's, yeah.
Tim Cook, the last two times he's opened his mouth has seemed very disheveled to me. And I don't know if you watched his maniacal performance at the event this week, his crazy introduction. It was like he was going backstage and drinking.
Yeah.
And then he just came out and he was kind of cackling and he was like yelling. And he was like a little overly exuberant. I get the idea that their PR team was like, Tim, you got to show slightly more personality than a board of wood, And then he went out and did what he did. And like this time they're going to be like, all right, so maybe turn it down a couple of notches. Like it was a little insane. And then he was on this conference call and they let I don't remember the guy's name, but whoever their CFO is now, was the one who explained that they were doing this, that they're not going to announce unit sales anymore. And he kind of went into a long reason why this doesn't reflect the health of the business, blah, 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 whatever. And then Tim Cook had to get his little insanity in, and he says, it's like when you go shopping and you get like a shopping cart full of stuff, and it doesn't matter how many units are there. I mean, what matters is the total value of the thing. And it's like, Actually, the units do matter, Tim. It's the units of what you're buying. And like, who are you talking about? The purchaser, like the human that's walking around with the cart? Or doesn't matter to the store. It was like the most ridiculous comparison. Units do matter. I mean, I think one of the big success stories of the iPhone, just to use that as an example, they've been able to raise the average selling price of that device for like several years in a row now, right? And I don't remember where it is now, but it's north of $728, something like that. It just keeps going up and up, and that's a success story. That's something, it's the Microsoft argument. We always say, this is information shareholders should have. It is information that shareholders should have. Yep. We should have this understanding that you guys have this situation firmly in hand, and they do. They clearly do. Anyway, I disagree with it, but
yeah, I think the most valuable company in the world is now hiding their data, and
I'm curious about the regulatory environment that exists that allows this to happen. I don't actually believe the rules have changed. I think what's happened is that over the years, different companies have tried different things to be vaguer and vaguer and vaguer. Everyone has gotten away with it. And we've arrived at the point where, we complain about this with Microsoft every quarter, so we're familiar with it. You can just get away with this now. And I mean, honestly, shareholders should be demanding these companies be transparent and provide them with the data they need to understand whether or not their investment is sound. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just obvious. And I even explaining it sounds silly. Like it does seems unnecessary, but we've reached this weird spot where like companies just don't have hard data anymore. And if they continue following this model, which I'm sure they will, they'll start changing the makeup of different business units, blah, and you'll never know. It's the shell game. You can always hide the little piece of garbage product over in the corner because it's surrounded by things that are making lots of money. So you can hide how poorly it's doing. This is not what I want as an industry observer, but as an investor, which I think is the important thing. is absolutely not what I would want. Not that I'm an Apple investor, but were I, that would be
Sure.
very upsetting.
You just invest in other ways, like buying a MacBook Air.
Well, I think it's fair to say I've bought several $1,000s worth of Apple equipment this year, but it's also fair to say that I've returned several $1,000s worth of Apple equipment this year. So the other, I don't know if you were going to get into this, but the other kind of thing that came out that's related to this and to the MacBook Air is that the Forced performance benchmarks have appeared, and it performs almost identically to the MacBook that has a 5th generation Core i5 processor, and it needs 16 gigs of RAM to get there. Boy, I don't know. It's not good.
Yep. Speaking of Apple stuff, Spotify, which I'm a big user of, also an Apple Watch, also a big user of, they're finally building an app for the watch, but it doesn't look like right now that you can run it independently.
Okay, like a remote control for the app kind of thing?
It's only a remote control essentially right now.
And they don't already have such, they don't have this?
Nope.
So does the Apple Watch at least offer some basic media controls so that whatever you're using on the phone? Okay.
Yep, you can skip and do all that stuff.
Yeah,
but they're actually, I was getting excited because one, I haven't bought a new Apple Watch yet, and this would be great justification for me if I could buy the Apple Watch, run Spotify just on the watch, and not have to take my phone into the gym. That's where I was hoping this goes. Right now you can do that with Apple Music, but I don't want to pay for Apple Music and Spotify. And so...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I bet it does get there. That's interesting. So if you were to buy an Apple Watch, I assume you are going to at some point, the new one, would you get an LTE version?
Probably not. I don't know.
Okay, so but the gym you go to probably has a Wi-Fi network of some kind.
Yeah.
But you need proximity to the phone for this to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's not good.
Yeah. The only reason I hesitate to say, would I buy the LTE version, there's a small part of me that wants to buy the stainless steel version of the Apple Watch that would match my phone because, you know what?
Yikes. This was the least masculine thing you have ever said. And I have a long list to compare it to.
It would match though, but I mean, like I have a...
Yikes. Only you would know because it's in a case.
No, you can see the bottom of it, Paul. You can see
the bottom of it.
You can. I'm just going to go under my desk and hide. I like the gold color. I think it looks good. Okay. And the gold aluminum version looks terrible. Like it
on the watch.
Yes. So right now I have the aluminum version and it's black and it's fine. More than likely that's the one I'll end up getting. But if for whatever reason I would buy a stainless steel version, I'd buy the one that would match my phone because I think that goldish, bronzish, whatever color-ish phone or watch looks really good. And that is an LTE version. So
I see. How much is that little guy? That must be what, $500, $550?
Oh, you summer child. I think
really? How much?
I think it's $5.99, maybe $6.99.
Yikes!
Yeah, that's why this would be a.
I mean, for that amount of money, you could just buy an iPhone XR and take that into the gym, and if it gets stolen, like whatever.
It's honestly not even a bad thought. I didn't even. How much that? Is it actually? If it's $6.99, there's no way, unless my wife is buying it for me for Christmas. How much? I'm actually looking
I mean, to be honest, other than the fact that you probably want to get notifications on your watch, like if your wife texts you or something,
right?
I mean, at this point, you could just say, like, just buy an iPod Touch, bring that to the gym, and if you're worried about bringing your phone in the gym.
Yep. So hold on, we are scrolling. Keep them doggies scrolling. Oh, geez, it is $700. Yikes!
Really? Spend, wow.
Wow.
Someone should come up with a phrase like Apple jacked,
or Apple taxed.
You've been doom Apple jack. Dun, 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 dun.
See what I deal with, everybody. Paul just.
Yep.
Oh gosh. There was something else I was going to ask you, but now I'm all disheveled by the fact that this thing actually costs $25 less than an iPhone XR.
That is really amazing.
I honestly got nothing. What else is going on in the world? I don't even know. Got a vote next week. If you're in the
Not
U.S.,
much.
that is.
I've been working on your book.
Oh,
I
yes.
haven't made a lot of progress. Haven't actually finished anything.
There. This would have been insensitive, so if you are sensitive to bad analogies, please cover your ears. I thought about putting. I've seen the comments Paul's been putting, or comments or edits and all that stuff. I thought about putting the opening scene of like Normandy from Saving Private Ryan on the beach, where there's just a whole bunch of casualties.
Right. This is what your book looks like.
Yes, it's kind of
Look, you're gonna get to the beach eventually.
eventually, and
There's a lot of red ink in the way.
the problem is when you get to the beach, the worst isn't over. You still got to scale the cliffs.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and Normandy is also just the the kind of border of the entire continent that we have to go through. But but the book's good. I like it. I mean, I like it because I like the source material,
Sure.
the subject, of course. But I like it. I like the way it's presented. I think this is going to go well. So,
Well, there you
like
go.
I told you earlier, first book I ever wrote a long time ago. Back then we did paper. We actually sent big bundles of paper back and forth across the continent.
1948. What?
Yeah. No, it was 1994, let's say, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And they would come back with there were all these different editors. So there was like a tech editor.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the terms anymore. But people would look for grammar errors and,
Yep.
and whatever, and continuity errors and
Mm-hmm.
style errors and all kinds of things. And they all had a different color pencil. And this thing came back. It looked like a bowl of Fruit Loops. Like it was just it was like an explosion of color. And I literally like almost broke down crying. Like I couldn't believe it was like this ruling on the quality of my work, you know. And the guy who got me into writing, Gary, was like, no, don't. It always looks like this. He's like, don't worry about this. This is just, it's not gonna. It's gonna take a while to get through it, but it's gonna be better on the other end.
Right, and that's the thing that you have to keep in mind anytime anybody edits anything. It's people are trying to help. They're not critiquing you personally. They're trying to make it so that when it's done, it's done. It's not halfway done.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like just beyond like the obvious stuff. There's like what how you handle acronym. Like if you mention an acronym the first time, you should probably you spell it out. Or if you mention someone's name, like Panos Panay or something, like probably have to explain who this person is. you know, like that kind of thing. And it's hard because it's funny. I'm kind of editing your book a little bit the way I write my own books, which is I kind of jump around and when you're creating something like this, because it's a multi-part thing. It's hard to remember or even know accurately when the first time was. And you may change it later because of an edit, and you have to. These things there's a lot of detail work.
It is.
So it's just. That's hard.
I mean, there were times the first chapter was written in June.
Yeah.
So trying to remember what was done in June when you're 4 months into it, it's tough. And then there were times when I was reading my own stuff before I even said, "Hey, Paul, please come." Dissect this thing that I was like, oh crap, I wrote the same story essentially twice.
Right.
Because you
That's
forget.
Because you have these, you have these kind of stories, let's call them, like these little events that are kind of like building blocks, and together they form the broader story of what happened. And sometimes they can make sense in different places. I don't know. Anyway, it's not a reflection of the quality. It's a reflection of
Appreciate that. I can tell you candidly, though, the story, at least the fun stuff, at least in my opinion, kind of picks up around the Surface 2. Because a lot of that, digging up anything prior to Microsoft announcing the hardware was tough because they were so locked down.
Yeah. I'm kind of I've been going over like it's kind of the Windows 8, Windows RT, Surface RT stuff where I'm at, and I read this and I think to myself like we need to communicate like how much of a train wreck that Windows 8 was.
I struggled with that too because you're having the exact same conversation with yourself that I did. I started to go like way down that rabbit hole, and I realized this isn't a book about Windows 8. So that story will get told at some point at somewhere. I mean, you could write 200 chapters on Windows 8, or 200 chapters,
The
200 pages on it.
Yeah, and I would culminate it with that awesome Frank Shaw quote from a year at the Surface Pro 3 launch, which I believe I've told this story publicly. So should I tell this story publicly? Yeah, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
We were New York was flooding. The event. This is the one where they're supposed to unleash the Surface Mini. Remember? And Mary Jo and I were standing with Frank overlooking the flooded mini New York City that they had out there by the docks where they had the launch event. It was all full of water. And we were talking about anniversaries, and I'll just get to the point of the story, is that we were talking about how Steven Snofsky's non-compete was concluding. And when it did, he could start hiring back all his old goons, and he could go off on his next venture. And Frank said, I just hope that whatever Steven does next is just as successful as Windows 8. This is just the most beautiful thing. But the sort of insider bit to that is that Microsoft knew this was going to be a train crash, like a year before they released it. And there was nothing they could do to prevent this from, it's like, if you think like there are two bad outcomes, it's like if Nokia had adopted Android and made Android phones instead of Windows Phone, it would have killed the platform. If Microsoft buys Nokia, they're going to spend a lot of money, and the platform's still probably going to die. So you've got two bad choices. Which one's less bad?
Yep.
You buy Nokia. The Windows 8 one was just like that. There was no way to stop it. But it was still the less bad thing because they couldn't do this again. They couldn't do Longhorn again. They couldn't.
Right. That they were at that position where it's like
they publicly showed it off.
Yep.
This is what we're doing. This is what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like all they could do was make plans to fix it afterwards, in stages, which is what they did do.
Yeah. It's called the apology tour of .1.
That's what I say. That's, yeah, Windows 8.1, I think, or maybe the first one was something like Windows 8.01 or what, I don't remember the exact, Windows 8 Update 1 or whatever the name was. I remember the first time I described it, I referred to it as, whatever the name is, Windows, let's call it, Windows 8 Update 1, or as Microsoft refers to it, the apology. Because it's just like, we're just gonna dig our way out of this grave now,
Yep, and there's a lot of that. There's so much I want to talk about, but then people will buy the book and be like, "Well, we just listened to the podcast and it's all done." I'm
sorry, I shouldn't have gone up. But it's a lot of work, and I didn't write it. Like it's, and so you're like, yeah, of course, I know it is. This is months later. I've been working on it all summer. It's, I don't have to explain it to you, but just so people understand, it's, a lot of work goes into this kind of thing, and it's not like a blog post.
Right.
We can obviously fix it later if there are problems. It's an ebook, but I mean. You want to kind of get it right as you go out the gate.
Yeah, I think the tentative release day right now is the 29th of this month. Ideally, I'd like to do it on the 27th because Tuesdays are better to launch things than Thursdays, marketing-wise. But sometime that week, I would like to be able to hit publish and then drink a fifth of scotch and not come up for a month from my basement.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure you'll hear from people. Like there will be... I'd kind of like to, I almost feel like after you go back over my edits, I should read it again.
See, that's what, not, you can read it again, obviously. But that's what's like draining in the back of my mind is you're going to finish it. I'm going to make all the edits. And then part of me is going to want to read this whole thing again.
I think I will, honestly, because it won't be like it will be the first time.
Sure.
As far as edits or whatever. But I think, unfortunately in this, sometimes a sea of green edits for me. That's what it looks like. It's kind of green colored, but it's hard to read it. Like I'll shift things around because you have these things that are really excellent, and I'm like, you know what?
The order is off.
Like throw that third paragraph up to the top, and this chapter is like, it starts off awesome, but it becomes like a mess of editing. Anyway, we don't. This is a private conversation. I'm not sure why we just talked.
Yeah,
about
this was great. I hope everyone else appreciates the sausage part of making a book.
Yeah.
Because
is anyone else here? Is it just, I thought it was just us.
It's only 100 of our closest friends listening right now. So,
yeah.
All right. Do you got anything else today, Mr. Thrat?
No, I'll like I said, I'll work on the book more today and over the weekend, and I'll try to get some memory for this NUC, so I can do something with that. No, not really. That's the big stuff.
Yep. I think I'm essentially following in your foottails, right? I let you get a little head in the book, then I follow behind and just keep editing. And I'm going to change a serpentine belt in my car this weekend. And
okay, nice.
Yeah.
Real world stuff. That's good.
Yeah, under the hood, turning wrenches. At least they.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So, all right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for today. This was another thrilling episode of First Ring Daily. We'll catch you back here on Monday, and have yourselves a wonderful weekend.